Film censorship is a technology that affected and was influenced by women, and has had one of the greatest impacts on the film industry out of any technology in the industry's history. This is because it tangibly changed an incredible number of movies from the 1930s to the 1960s through literal restriction of content they could and could not have. They did this by cutting scenes that weren't considered compliant with the rules at the time. Film has evolved so vastly since the earliest camera to modern times. The first motion picture, in fact, was just a man riding a horse for a short while, known as the Round Hay Garden scene. This was the first motion picture ever recorded and shot frame by Muybridge. It depicted the movement of a horse in a few still motions, which when put together led to a motion picture. This was just the beginning of film tech. There's been numerous innovations in the film industry, from editing, camera movement, direction, etc. This development in the technology of film does not stop there, but has continued to evolve as time has marched on. One of the greatest examples of film technology that continues to evolve is in the censorship of film. From the first production code that was enforced back in 1934 to the movie rating system in place today, movies have always had to adhere to a set of guidelines. However, censorship was a topic of discussion in film far before the production code was put in place. In fact, censorship in the United States started around 1896. This was after the release of Thomas Edison's film Lust. The movie was scrutinized for questions of morality. In 1907, Chicago established the first censorship laws. This gave many other states the same idea. Well, with many different regions having different laws and regulations, a problem was created in the filmmaking industry. Films only could be shown in certain regions in which they fit the regulation. This problem led to the creation of the National Board of Censorship in 1909. The Motion Picture Production Code was known as the Hays Code and was extremely extensive, covering topics such as murder, sex, vulgarity, obscenity, profanity, costumes, dancing, religion, locations, national feelings, titles, and repellent subjects. This was a list of rules that continued to develop from the beginning of the production code until it was eventually preceded by new standards in 1967.
The aforementioned motion picture production code restricted a lot of material that filmmakers could include. Sexual content has been one of the most censored topics within the film industry, with its censorship affecting countless films. In the 1953 film Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, adapted from Anita Loos's novel of the same name, this censorship is evident in scenes such as the one where the male Olympic team is working out in flesh-tone underwear next to a pool while Dorothy Shaw walked in between them. Throughout the novel on which the film was based, Dorothy was very sexually active with many men, and scenes such as this were the closest that the movie could get to showing explicitly this. Some films tried to get around the restriction of anything sexual by using innuendo in various ways, such as in the 1950 film In a Lonely Place, where Humphrey Bogart's character was named Dixon Steele, which is a clear hint towards male genitalia. Very similarly, in the 1938 film Bringing Up Baby, Cary Grant's character was nicknamed Mr. Bone, which is another clear hint towards the same subject. Some small innuendos such as these got past the code, however more extensive innuendos were often cut. Another aspect of many films that was censored by the production code was violence and murder. In the 1944 film Laura, even though the novel it was based on described a murder and a dead body that was thought to be Laura, the film adaptation didn't feature a scene with the murder or the mutilated corpse. Similarly, in the 1953 film Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, while the novel included Lorelei Lee saying, "It seems that I had a revolver in my hand, and it seems that the revolver shot Mr. Jennings," this detail of the novel was completely left out of the final film. Additionally, while being one of the most basic aspects of human life itself, pregnancy was also heavily censored by the code. In the 1932 Dorothy Arzner film Merrily We Go to Hell, Joan Prentice became pregnant, and when Jerry Corbett tried to visit her at the end of the film, he was told that the baby had already died, meaning the actual childbirth scene was skipped over completely to follow the rules at the time. In the 1934 film The Girl from Missouri, also partially written by Anita Loos, there's a scene in which Edie is alone with Tom in his house, during which he locked the doors and acted extremely imposing towards Edie, making her evidently uncomfortable. This is as much as could be shown under the code, as the code details that seduction and rape should never be more than suggested, and then only when essential for the plot. Many people don't consider the specific people that the code affected, many of whom were women. For example, there were many women running the creative processes of making the films, such as Anita Loos, who was a writer, and Dorothy Arzner, who was a director. Both of these women, and many more, had to adhere to the code, which became evident when compared to their more sensationalistic and explicit pre-code work. On the other side of the process, actresses like Marilyn Monroe of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes were pushed to become sexual icons, as they couldn't do anything explicitly sexual, so they had to make their entire characters feature hints towards seduction and sexuality. So, when combined, every aspect of the production code made it so that nearly all movies produced while it was still being enforced had to restrain themselves and the content they included in some way to adhere to the guidelines, which literally changed each film and the industry tremendously during the time period.
I just wanted to see the view from here. It's better.
The era of the motion picture production code discussed previously ended around 1968. Let me tell you why and how. The quote-unquote golden age of the production code oversaw many movies during its lifetime and censored many scenes, replacing them as well as shifting themes entirely due to social norms. The censorship of films evolved in a way that few other film technologies have. It drastically went from a system based on social norms and subjective views to a rating system based on age in the audience. There is a difference in the modern rating system now and the production code of the mid-20th century. The production code focused on censoring the movies themselves and removing or altering scenes deemed sensitive. Now, the modern rating system, which was introduced in 1968, focuses on the audience. The movies can be as sensitive as the director or filmmaker wants them to be. However, the audience that can view said movie are limited. It gives a suggestion to the age limit that the movie should be viewed by, and also a description of the graphic content involved. Now that the definition of each system is out of the way, here's some brief history from me. The modern rating system, while still overseen by the Motion Pictures Association of America, was introduced in 1968 by Jack Valenti, the new president of the MPAA, who called the Hays Code, quote, the odious smell of censorship. Ooh. He implemented the new code to lessen film restrictions. This new code followed certain similar criteria like the production code in regards to sexual activity and violence, however did not infringe on filmmakers' rights to tell a story. Overall, this technology changed from the 30s to now in 2019, from Jack Valenti and his new code to Dorothy Arzner and her pre-code film Merrily We Go to Hell. Many people were influential in the form of censorship movies went through in history. Women, especially as actors and directors, were changed due to the censorship laws. Actors such as Marilyn Monroe became sexual icons and had to find ways to exhibit this behavior without explicitly stating it, and also changed the way the audience views the female role from a seducer to a female fatale. As this technology continues to change and be debated over today, there is no doubt that it plays an influential role in the film industry and impacts the emergent aspect of film we all love and enjoy. As we leave off here, enjoy this clip from the hottest rated R movie ever recently.